What if I told you something the size of 33 billion tons just appeared on our radar, moving with a precision no natural object should possess? And NASA is terrified to tell you why. This isn't just another rock floating in the void. This is a paradigm shift. This thing isn't drifting through space like a wayward asteroid caught in a gravitational well. It isn't tumbling like a comet off-gassing in the sunlight. It's aiming directly at us. And the scariest part isn't its size or its speed, it's that it knows things about Earth that we've never told anyone. It possesses data that shouldn't exist outside of our own classified archives. Stick around, because what happened next will rewrite everything you thought you knew about our place in the universe. And if you're captivated by the mystery of Three-Eye Atlas and want to see more mind-bending cosmic stories, smash that like button and let the universe know you're watching. Every click helps keep the search for the unknown alive. Let me take you back to the moment this nightmare began. It was a Tuesday, quiet in the way that only deep space observation rooms can be. When the Atlas survey first flagged Three-Eye Atlas, NASA's systems assumed it was a glitch. Standard procedure dictates that anomalies are usually just noise in the data, maybe a cosmic ray fooling the sensors, hitting a CCD chip at the wrong angle, or maybe a calibration error in the software processing pipeline. It was dismissed as nothing to worry about, just another ghost in the machine. But then confirmations started flooding in from observatories thousands of miles apart, from the high deserts of Chile to the volcanic peaks of Hawaii. Every single telescope that turned toward its coordinates sent back the same impossible message. This object had an orbital path far too precise for anything natural. Nature is chaotic. It is full of wobbles and perturbations. But this trajectory was nearly identical to Earth's orbit, matching our inclination and eccentricity with mathematical perfection. And here's where it gets disturbing. Its velocity vector refused to follow gravitational predictions. According to Kepler's laws, an object at that distance should be moving at a specific speed relative to the sun. This object wasn't. Natural objects don't do that. Asteroids can't do that. They are slaves to gravity. Comets don't do that. They are pushed by solar wind but remain predictable. But spacecraft do. Spacecraft accelerate and decelerate at will. NASA immediately ordered teams to scrub the data again, run simulations, and check for errors. They pulled engineers off other projects, waking people up in the middle of the night. Millions of dollars of computational power burned through in just hours, churning through terabytes of telemetry. And I've seen the internal notes from that frantic night. They were desperately searching for any excuse to dismiss this anomaly, because if the data was real, if this thing was actually performing controlled motion, then everything changes. It means we are not just observing a rock, we are observing a visitor. And the data was real. Every single check confirmed it. Three-Eye Atlas was steering itself. Now here's where this story takes a turn that still gives me chills. To get a better look, they authorized emergency time on the most powerful eye we have in the sky. When the James Webb Space Telescope pointed at Three-Eye Atlas, the spectrograph returned results so bizarre that the oversight board demanded it be reprocessed 5 separate times. They thought the sensors were broken. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. In a standard asteroid, you expect specific signatures, absorption lines for rock, maybe some carbon, maybe some iron. But here, no water ice, no silicate dust, no carbon compounds, none of the signatures we expect from space rocks. Instead, Webb detected highly unusual absorption gaps, distinct patterns consistent with heavy metallic lattices. We aren't talking about raw iron ore. We are talking about refined structures, possibly alloys that don't exist in any human metallurgy database. These were materials that absorbed light in a way that suggested they were engineered to withstand stresses we can't even model. Inside NASA, this is the moment everything changed. The jokes stopped. The nervous laughter in the break rooms evaporated. Emergency briefings began at the highest levels of the Department of Defense. The Planetary Defense Office shifted from casual monitoring to strategic concern. And people stopped using the word asteroid. They started saying vehicle, because here's the detail that made everyone's blood run cold. As 3I Atlas approached Jupiter's orbit, it slowed down. Not a natural deceleration from drag or gravity. Those forces are negligible out there in the vacuum. This was an active correction, a burn maneuver. It shed velocity against the gravitational pull of the gas giant, a move that requires massive energy output. Something was steering itself with terrifying precision, utilizing the planet's gravity not just as a slingshot, but as a braking mechanism. But wait, because it gets even stranger. Then came the signal, a narrowband radio emission repeating every 53 minutes. At first it looked like background noise, flat, sterile, nothing special, just the hiss of the cosmos. But when analysts zoomed into the fine structure, stripping away the static of the cosmic microwave background, everything changed. There was layering, modulation, interference patterns nested inside one another like Russian dolls. This wasn't random static from a pulsar or a dying star. This was a package of information, dense and encrypted. NASA quietly assembled a cross-disciplinary decoding team. They brought in the best minds they could find, cryptographers from the NSA, linguists who specialize in dead languages, AI theorists, and astrophysicists. Their job wasn't to interpret an alien language in the traditional sense. It was to determine whether 3I Atlas was deliberately talking, and if so, to whom. I sat in one of those early meetings, tucked away in a windowless room at JPL. Everyone assumed it was a beacon, a ping meant to announce its presence, like a ship blowing its horn in the fog. But the more we studied it, the more unsettling it became. This wasn't an introduction. It wasn't a greeting like, "We come in peace." It behaved like a directive, a set of instructions, or a request for a handshake protocol. And then came the moment that froze every face in that room. One of the AI models, a neural network designed to find patterns in chaos, extracted repeating mathematical forms from the signal. It found prime numbers, geometric constants, ratios describing orbital structures, things that proved intelligence beyond a shadow of a doubt. But buried beneath that familiar scaffolding was something we still cannot fully decode. However, one fragment was unmistakable. The signal was referencing Earth specifically, not the Sun, which is usually the gravitational anchor of any coordinate system, not the solar system as a whole, Earth. And the phrasing, if you can even call it that, hinted at something far more unnerving: knowledge. This thing had knowledge about us, about our planet, about something Earth possesses that 3I Atlas was coming for with clear intention. Now, I need you to understand how serious this became. NASA's internal briefing summary used one chilling sentence to describe the situation. This object is not approaching us by accident. Let that sink in for a moment. Not by accident. That means purpose. That means intent. That means something out there decided Earth was worth the journey across the dark abyss. And later in this video, I'm going to tell you what happened when we finally decoded more of that message. What we discovered will change how you see our planet forever. Okay, let's look at the physics again. The moment 3I Atlas performed its first orbital correction near Jupiter, everything inside NASA shifted from scientific curiosity to strategic alarm. You could feel the change in the air like the hum before an earthquake. Natural bodies don't hit the brakes in space. They don't shift laterally by 28 kilometers per second with no detectable propulsion plume. Yet that is exactly what 3I Atlas did. It executed a controlled deceleration followed by a precision course adjustment, nudging itself closer to the plane of Earth's orbit as if aligning for a rendezvous. Inside the JPL Situation Room, the screens told a story no one was prepared to read. This object wasn't just coming toward Earth, it was optimizing its trajectory with intelligence. Every correction reduced relative velocity to ensure a smooth arrival. Every maneuver brought its orbit into cleaner resonance with ours. The math wasn't random, it was elegant, purposeful, chillingly efficient. And you want to know the scariest part? Every single adjustment was perfect. Zero wasted energy, zero overcorrection. Whatever was piloting this thing understood orbital mechanics better than we do. It was flying with a level of efficiency that made our best autopilots look like toys. Then the halo appeared. The Deep Space Network picked up a faint radio sheath surrounding 3I Atlas, a narrow band, collimated, pulsing in a pattern too structured to be thermal noise. On the spectrograph, it looked like a ring of perfectly spaced teeth, frequencies aligned in complex intervals. Someone in the room joked that it looked like a cosmic barcode, a digital identifier. Nobody laughed. The pulses intensified as 3I Atlas drew closer to Mars' orbit. Still faint, still distant, but unmistakably deliberate. And more troubling than the signal itself was its consistency. It was repeating, but not identically, each sequence built upon the previous one, a progressive structure, a recursive design. It was as if the signal was teaching itself, or teaching us. It was evolving, adding vocabulary to its transmission. NASA briefed the White House in total secrecy. The phrasing was careful, sterilized, forced through legal filters to avoid panic. But I saw the raw version before the edits. It stated plainly that 3I Atlas demonstrates controlled flight behavior and recommended elevation to a national security priority. But security implies threat, and threat implies intent, and intent demands that someone or something wants something from us. Now here's where this gets absolutely wild. The Rubin Observatory, scanning the darkness, detected smaller bodies accompanying 3I Atlas. Dark, fast-moving, geometric, too dim for visible reflection, too cold for a thermal signature, but betraying themselves through light occlusion patterns as they blocked out background stars. 3 of them at first, then 5. They moved in formation, matching 3I Atlas's velocity vector with uncanny precision. Were they escort craft, probes, weapon platforms, or something equivalent to tugboats? Their movements displayed no drift, no wobble, no error bars. It looked like a convoy. At that moment, NASA understood the magnitude of what we were facing. 3I Atlas was not a rogue rock tumbling through space. It was the centerpiece of a structured arrival. Something was coming, and it was organized. In the decoding room, signal analysts expanded the frequency search. That's when we realized the pulses were not broadcasting outward indiscriminately into the void. They were focusing inward toward the inner solar system, toward us. The messages grew stronger every time 3I Atlas completed a maneuver. As though each new trajectory brought clarity to the transmission, we discovered sidebands, whispers layered beneath the primary signal. They carried harmonic distortions that looked almost like fingerprints, the unique resonance of an engineered communication array. And then, just before the signal climbed into its strongest harmonic yet, the AI flagged a pattern we had never seen before, a shift in mathematical structure from descriptive to imperative. Not a map, not information, a command. But a command for whom? For what? We still don't know. The last decoded fragment simply suggested alignment, synchronization, preparation, and the timing of that message aligned eerily with 3I Atlas's next predicted orbital maneuver. Whatever is approaching us is not drifting, it's coordinating, it's positioning, it's arriving with intent, and every hour that intent becomes harder to ignore. But here's what I haven't told you yet, the part that made even the most skeptical scientists go silent. We were about to discover that 3I Atlas knew more about Earth than any probe we've ever launched, and what it knew should have been impossible. The real breaking point came when the decoding team finally extracted a coherent mathematical core from the 3I Atlas signal. I was in the room when the first clean reconstruction played through the speakers. It wasn't sound, it was data converted to audible frequencies, a cascading sequence of prime numbers, ratios of orbital periods, constants that reference the gravitational layout of our solar system. But it was centered on Earth, not the Sun. Earth. That alone sent a wave of fear through the room, because nothing in deep space should know Earth's orbital signature with that level of precision unless it had been measured up close or remembered from a previous encounter. The next layers of the signal changed everything. The structure shifted from pure mathematics into something almost architectural. frequency clusters forming diagrams, arrangements that resembled orbital shells, pressure gradients, energy contours, but they didn't map to anything we've cataloged. Not to comets, not to moons, not to any spacecraft we've ever built. Whatever these diagrams represented, they were not natural formations. The linguists and cryptographers began cross-referencing the patterns with known symbolic analogies, but the most shocking breakthrough didn't come from them. It came from a machine learning model that wasn't designed for linguistics at all. It was built for analyzing dark matter distribution patterns, yet it recognized the structure as instructional, not descriptive, not declarative, instructional. One of the AI specialists stood up, face pale, and whispered something that made my spine tingle. "It's telling us to do something." Shutterstock. Silence, the kind you feel in your teeth. I leaned closer to the monitor. The decoded frame showed a repeating triad, 3 shapes, 3 energy levels. The team called it the triplet. And embedded inside the triplet were transitions that suggested conditional states. If this, then that sequences. Logic, code. The universe itself doesn't use conditional logic. Physics just happens. Intelligence uses logic. But the part that shook the room deepest came from a buried subharmonic, so faint we nearly dismissed it as an error in the receiver. Once isolated, the pattern revealed something undeniable, a reference to Earth's magnetic dipole. Not the general structure, not just the polarity, the variation. It was as if the transmitter knew our magnetic history down to micro changes in field drift over the last 10,000 years. One of the geophysicists said it out loud, his voice trembling. "This thing knows more about Earth than any probe we've ever launched." Think about that for a second. Something from outside our solar system has detailed knowledge of Earth's magnetic field variations over millennia. How? When? Who told it? Or more terrifying, was it here before? Was it watching, recording, and is it now coming back? NASA could no longer hide behind caution. The director authorized an emergency global briefing. In the hours leading up to it, I saw grown scientists, people who had spent their lives studying the cold logic of the cosmos, hesitating before speaking as if afraid words themselves would trigger something. When the director finally walked on stage and faced the cameras, the public saw calm professionalism. But those of us behind the scenes saw something else. Dread barely held in place by discipline. The statement was short, evasive, sanitized. Officially, NASA confirmed a non-natural interstellar object performing anomalous orbital behavior and acknowledged structured radio patterns of unknown origin. The press erupted. Questions flew, answers didn't. But the real storm happened off camera. Behind the locked doors of mission analysis, the team played the newest decoded extract for us. And what we heard is the reason NASA is no longer merely concerned. NASA is afraid, and you're about to find out why. The moment the timestamp was confirmed, NASA initiated the fastest mission preparation since the Challenger era. Except this time, the goal wasn't recovery or repair. It was interception. A joint NASA-ESA probe, Frankensteined together from experimental propulsion modules and classified components, was rolled out of a hangar that technically doesn't exist on any public record. They didn't name it. They didn't christen it with champagne. They just called it the vehicle because no one wanted to admit what it really was. Humanity's first attempt to approach something undeniably intelligent. I watched from the secure gantry as engineers made the final checks. The propulsion signature was pushed to limits no one had tested at full scale. It didn't matter. Timelines ruled everything now. The launch window was collapsing. If the probe missed its synchronization window with 3I Atlas's deceleration arc, the object would reach its predicted station before we even left deep space. We needed eyes on it. We needed data. We needed to know what we were dealing with before it arrived at our doorstep. When the probe reached its cruising velocity, speeding away from Earth, the shift in energy readings began immediately. The telemetry didn't match any known phenomenon. Fields were bending where they shouldn't bend. Residual energy patterns behaved like gravity one second and electromagnetic flux the next. It was like the space surrounding 3I Atlas refused to obey physics as we know it. The probe's instruments started drifting out of calibration before it even closed 10% of the distance. Then came the worst part. The probe detected a wall, not a literal wall of stone, but a distortion, a gradient, a manufactured perimeter of influence. The term used in the report was field architecture, as if someone had engineered the vacuum itself into a barrier. Sensors jittered, timestamps desynchronized. The probe's onboard clock lost 0.08 seconds and then gained 0.11 back, as though time was being stretched and compressed in microbursts around the object. And when the visual suite finally came online, the feed displayed something none of us had expected. Objects, not debris, not natural satellites, deliberate constructs, dozens of them, small, geometric, dark as obsidian, moving in tight formation around 3I Atlas. They reflected almost no sunlight, no infrared, no ultraviolet. They were invisible to everything except the probe's immediate proximity sensors. Each object held a stable distance as if maintaining a defensive perimeter or a ceremonial escort. Someone in the control room whispered, "They're guarding it." Someone else added, "Or guiding it." No one argued. The probe tried to push closer. That's when everything failed at once. Magnetometers spiked off the charts. Accelerometers went blind. Cameras washed out into static. A pulse struck the probe, not destructive, but firm, like a warning shove. Every instrument flickered, rebooted, and then stabilized. But when the systems came back, the probe found itself gently pushed, literally displaced, back to a safe distance. In the room, nobody spoke for nearly a minute. The telemetry review showed no thermal signature, no radiation spike, no particle impact. Whatever moved the probe did so without force in any conventional sense. It was displacement without interaction, motion without contact. Physics shouldn't allow that. This was a violation not of our models, but of the assumptions behind those models. The team replayed the event hundreds of times, convinced it must be an instrument malfunction. It wasn't. The displacement was real, and 3I Atlas wasn't finished. Right after the probe was redirected, the radio emissions shifted. Not in intensity, but in structure. The pulses branched into multiple harmonics, as if acknowledging the probe's attempt, as if updating its behavior in response to our presence. The decoding models ran overnight, consuming massive amounts of power. When the results came in, we knew humanity had crossed a threshold we could never return from. The new signal included additional sequences, structures resembling scaffolds, layers, unfolding mechanisms, shapes that suggested engineering on a scale we couldn't comprehend. Something was preparing, activating, transforming, and buried in the harmonics was a new pattern, a countdown, not to arrival but to deployment. Whatever 3I Atlas was about to open, extend, or reveal, the process had already begun, and there was no scenario, no simulation, no projection in which we could stop it. 3I Atlas arrived exactly when the timestamp predicted, down to the second. It slowed, pivoted with impossible smoothness, and settled into position at Earth-Sun L2, the Lagrange point where gravity balances perfectly. This is the same gravitational pocket where we parked our most sensitive telescopes, like James Webb. Except this time, we were the ones being observed. From the ground, nothing was visible to the naked eye. But space-based instruments saw everything. The escorts spread outward like petals opening on a vast dark flower. Their formation stabilized into a rotating lattice, and at the center, 3I Atlas unfolded. It didn't open explosively or mechanically with gears and pistons. It was more like a geometric blooming. Layers peeled back, revealing interior structures that bent light in ways that made them look liquid, even though spectrographs insisted they were solid metal. And then the beam activated, not a weapon, not an attack. A narrow column of exotic energy stretched from 3I Atlas toward Earth, passing harmlessly through our satellites, cutting across the atmosphere without causing thermal distortion or sonic booms. The beam didn't hit a city, a military base, or a continent. It locked onto a single invisible coordinate hovering above Earth's magnetic field line, a point with no physical structure whatsoever, a point we'd never known existed. Earth reacted instantly. Magnetometers around the world spiked. Auroras erupted as far south as the equator, painting the skies in impossible colors of violet and crimson. Power grids flickered as induction currents surged through the lines. Something in our magnetic architecture was resonating with whatever 3i Atlas was doing, but it wasn't destabilizing us. It was synchronizing. NASA scrambled, governments panicked, readying their defenses. The public spiraled into chaos, fearing the end of the world. But in the mission analysis room, we stared at the decoded message. The fragments we had finally assembled from the new harmonics told a different story. For the first time, the signal made sense. 3i Atlas wasn't here to take anything. It was here to unlock something. The diagrams, once inscrutable, now revealed their intent. Instructions for stabilizing a dormant magnetic anomaly. Earth has carried for millennia an anomaly whose fluctuations align with mass extinctions, climate upheavals, and geomagnetic avalanches. The triplet wasn't a code, it was a calibration sequence, a repair algorithm. The beam wasn't harvesting energy, it was tuning us. Yet the final decoded fragment was brutally simple. Preserve the cradle, prepare the path. We debated its meaning for hours, days. Was Earth the cradle? Was humanity the cradle? Or was the message older, addressed to whoever lived here long before us? If 3i Atlas was a guardian, a caretaker, a machine sent to maintain cosmic infrastructure, then Earth wasn't being visited. It was being serviced. As the beam finished its cycle, the auroras faded. The magnetic field stabilized into a configuration we'd never recorded before. Stronger, cleaner, smoother. The escorts folded back toward 3i Atlas. The lattice dissolved. The object compressed into its original form, and then silence. 3i Atlas dimmed, drifted, and began to accelerate away from Earth-Sun L2. Not toward Earth, but away from it, toward deep space where no human instrument could follow. It left us with no threat, no warning, no instruction manual, only a single unanswered question. Were we just repaired, or were we prepared? Because whatever 3i Atlas adjusted in our world, whatever path it referenced, the process was only the beginning. And now all we can do is wait for the next arrival. The question that haunts me every night is simple. If Earth needed repair, what broke it in the first place? And if we're being prepared, what are we being prepared for? The universe just proved it's watching us, tending to us, maybe even protecting us. But from what? And at what cost? 3i Atlas came and left without permission, without explanation. It adjusted something fundamental about our planet and disappeared before we could even ask why. That's not a visit, that's maintenance. And if Earth is infrastructure, then what are we? Passengers, cargo, or just the biological byproduct of something far older and far more deliberate than we ever imagined? Don't stop here. The universe is full of secrets waiting to be uncovered. Click on the next video and join us as we explore even more astonishing mysteries from the farthest reaches of space. Because if 3i Atlas taught us anything, it's that we are not alone. And whatever is out there has been watching far longer than we've been looking up.